Hello. So today I'm going to take you through some work I've been doing lately with the Launchpad Pro, which I've worked on quite a bit over the last few years. Um, Most of my previous work was made using web MIDI, and this time I've been working with these dual USB microcontrollers, such as this WaveShare unit, which has a Raspberry Pi Pico 2, basically an RP2350 chip. Um, and there's other boards like this one is a Adafruit unit that has a Raspberry Pi 2040 chip, but they all have two USB ports, one of which is connected to the computer, lets it act as a MIDI device, but also lets you reprogram it. And then the other is a host port that lets you connect some other MIDI device, USB device to it, in my case, a USB MIDI device, and then have control over that, and also be able to kind of bridge between them and respond to whatever's happening on the, let's call this the client device, and then send it along to the computer, maybe with some changes like I showed you in the last video. Moving the mod wheel on a nano pad resulted in notes that sounded like a guitar. So in this case, what I'm doing is a little different in that I am building a user interface. That's one thing that the Launchpad is great at, is you can send it messages to control how it looks. And there's a very clear diagram for what messages it sends you. So you can build a user interface where you know, based on the user's inputs, what to output, and you can update it in real time. So let's focus on this side, which is just talking to the little WaveShare unit. We have another one hooked up here, and that goes to the computer. When I press the left button here, a column of lights moves in one direction or the other, and then I can do the same thing with the row and the up and down buttons. So that is all happening, communicating between the unit and the WaveShare, and then the WaveShare talks back to it. And I'll get into the difference between these two more in a minute, but basically there's no computer in between these two. It's just talking to it. You could make battery-powered setups that didn't have a computer at all if you wanted to. So on this side, the left side, this is connected to my computer. So you can think of them like siblings. This is connected to my computer, and it's kind of the sibling of that WaveShare unit. But you can use software to connect their inputs and outputs. I use a program called MIDI. There's MIDI programs for Windows and Mac that do the same thing, where you say, okay, everything that goes from this input, send it to that output, and everything that goes from this, send it to that. So so what happens is when I send a note here, you can see they both update. The input goes to the WaveShare unit, and then the WaveShare unit sends the updated look and feel to its own host port, which updates this unit, and then it sends it to the computer saying, hey, I just sent some MIDI messages, and the computer has software set up to route it back here. And then when I press notes here, I've configured it to say, okay, route this note to this sibling, this WaveShare unit, and then the WaveShare unit sends it back over here. So you can make pretty complex setups, even without having 3 USB ports. You could actually control 2 devices, which is pretty exciting, but there's some limitations. So I figured out how to power the units. Obviously, they look great. I figured out how to paint them using notes. This is with notes, where I say for every pad here, there's a corresponding note number, as though this were a giant keyboard. And then how hard I want to play the note, the volume, velocity, that controls what the color is. So for all the pads that are unlit, I just send a velocity of 0, and for this one, I send a velocity of 3, which is weird, but they have this weird palette thing that you have to keep track of. But I have to send about 100 minus these corners, so like 96 notes to update this side. And that's because I didn't find a way to get system exclusive messages working. So system exclusive messages are unique to each vendor. Each vendor provides them as kind of an API, and Novations is one of the best documented, where you can send a shorter instruction and have it take the place of a lot of individual nodes. So in this, so for example, all of these unlit pads, I had to send a note that said 0, because if it's moving, I want to draw black there before I draw white here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to tell where you were. It would just paint over time, and it all would be white. So on this side, on the left side, on the client side, I can use system exclusive messages. And so I can say, all right, I want you to clear every pad and set it to the same color, and that color is black. And that message is about 9 bytes long. So instead of about 3 node-on messages, I can clear the whole Launchpad. And then there's a type of system exclusive message to send a column at once, where you send which column you want to work with, and then you send 10 colors. So you can paint it all at once. In this case, I'm setting them all to the same thing. There's a similar command to paint a whole row at once. So on this right side, I had to send close to 100 messages at about 3 bytes each. On the left side, I had to send about not quite 60 bytes of data. So it's a lot better if you're going to be doing fast updates. So for example, sometimes I'm doing animations that are meant to be animation speeds, like multiple times a second. And painting it with notes, individual notes, there's a lot of data back and forth, and it tends to be too slow to really pull off something like that. So right now what I have is good for making simple interfaces. Like I could make things like coloring schemes. I could certainly make things like I've made a few sequencers before they had a good sequencer built into the Launchpad Pro 3. I made a sequencer for the Launchpad. And I made bunches of other stuff, and most of it I could make using just this setup. I'm hoping to figure out the system exclusive messages, and then I'll be able to make stuff like the polar vortex, which I'll have to link to, which it was like a spinning cloud of data points going around, and that kind of animation would not work with these nodes. So I can do some things. I'm happy with that. I've got to do some work to make it work with other Launchpads. Like there's different conventions for the Pro, the Pro 3. I have an original Launchpad. That kind of stuff is probably possible with what I've got so far. And then longer term, we'll see if I can close that last gap and really make it possible to replace everything that I've done before on the Launchpad with these teeny weeny little units. Anyway, it's an exciting time, and I hope you found it interesting, and thank you for your time. Bye.